Madam Speaker, managing precious water has never been more important than it is today, and government has allocated $820,400 for the Land and Water Resource Management Division, headquartered in Raiwanga, and with administrators in Luvuluvu, Ba, Navua, and Lambasa. The division's engineers, environmentalists, and other staff work with other government agencies to provide technical service and advise to develop sustainable practices, manage water resources, and improve crop yield. Madam Speaker, government is committed to providing essential services to farming communities through extension services, and we have allocated $914,000 to increase staff mobility, facilitate day-to-day logistic operations, and purchase new office equipment. Government will continue to support industry development programs across the country to assist farmers with the necessary tools, resources, infrastructure, and expertise for specific crops. $350,000 is provided for the rice revitalization program, $500,000 for the coconut development program, $530,000 for the cocoa revitalization program, $800,000 for the ginger development program, $50,000 for the vanilla development program, and $100,000 for the cottage industry development program. Most importantly, Madam Speaker, government will launch 2 new agricultural initiatives in 2016 to support Yangona and Dalo production to meet increased overseas and domestic demand. Government has allocated $1.7 million for this assistance. Current Dalo production in Tavyuni has suffered from a decrease in fertility, so farming operations are being relocated to the flat areas in Naitasiri. The Ministry of Agriculture will work with farmers in these regions to build capacity for Dalo production to meet the increased demand. The Coconut Development Program has proven to be a success, with more than 480,000 seedlings already planted. The target is to replant 1 million coconut trees over the next 2 years. The Ginger Development Program has been increased by $300,000 to assist farmers with land preparation and procurement of seedlings and agro inputs. This increase is attributed to increased demand in overseas markets for ginger. The Extension Division is providing rice machines and other services to rice farmers to develop potential rice areas and assisting rice farmers in the north to increase production. The Ministry has significantly improved the lives of rural women through the Cottage Industry Development Program, and this important work will continue in 2016. The goal of the Yangona Revitalization Program is to increase production through mechanization, increase cultivation of highly recommended varieties, providing training for farmers to improve the quality of kava and strengthen market linkages between buyers and producers. The Ministry aims to increase cocoa production in 2016 by opening new areas to cultivation and rehabilitating existing plantations. Initially, we expect to export around 12 tons of dry cocoa beans to Australia annually. The Extension Division is providing machinery to rice farmers to develop new rice areas and mechanical and agro inputs to rice farmers in the north to increase production. Government will allocate $1 million for the Livestock Rehabilitation Program, an ongoing activity that supports the growth of the livestock industry through proper artificial insemination. The target in 2016 is to inseminate 2,000 cows. Madam Speaker, we must also ensure the health of our livestock, so government will continue efforts to eradicate brucellosis through Brucellosis Tuberculosis Eradication Campaign, which is funded at $1 million. Government will allocate $1.4 million for watershed management, focusing on the construction of check dams to regulate the peak flow of water floods during periods of high-intensity rainfall to reduce the impact of flooding in the lower river basin. These small-scale structures work in many ways to mitigate the effects of drought and control sediment. The funding especially for the construction of reinforced concrete retention dam in the Namosi tributary and in the Nendi watershed. A total of 4 retention weir dams have been constructed. Drainage and flood protection projects are allocated $6 million. Priorities for the 2016 are the dredging of the Singatoka River and continuing work on the Rewa and Lambasa rivers by the government-owned dredges. Government believes that better farming roads will lead to better production, and we have allocated $2 million for this activity. Developing new farm roads and improving existing ones will make farming areas more accessible and reduce travel time to and from farms. Everyone will benefit by the improved quality of agricultural products, greater consistency of supply, and increased acreage under cultivation. The Rural and Outer Island Program is allocated $1 million. This is an integrated market-driven agriculture program to help rural and outer island farmers meet market demands. It is not a handout program, Madam Speaker. Applicants must contribute to the program through land lease, labour and aid in kind. Government is allocating $2 million for the drainage subsidy, which funds the 3 divisional drainage boards that maintain and operate drainage schemes under the jurisdiction. The Ministry of Fisheries and Forests, Madam Speaker, is funded $26.3 million for 2016 to carry out its responsibilities to promote sustainable development and management of Fiji's fisheries and forest resources. Grants and transfers account for $2.8 million, including the operating grant to the Fiji Pine Trust. That grant has nearly doubled in 2016 to $550,000, with the aim of extending pine plantations in Fiji, where landowners manage forests, sell logs, and receive full stumpage. Government has also allocated $700,000 in 2016, an increase of $200,000, to continue the construction of the multi-species hatcheries in Ra, which actually has been delayed for some time. The project will eventually produce freshwater marine fish and post-larval prawn and shrimp. These can be used for cultivation to reseed the overfished reefs, to feed or generate supplementary income for rural populations, to open opportunities for agriculture exports, to relieve inshore fishing pressure, and to create opportunities for employment. The ice plant in Ahau, Rotuma, will be completed in 2016 with funding of $600,000. This was a 2-year project. Government has allocated $2.6 million for the forest conservation information systems and data banks to forest inventory, GIS and remote sensing, forest surveys, and national forest monitoring systems. The Reducing Emission from Deforestation and Forest Degradation Project, or RED Plus, will continue in 2016 and is funded at $100,000. In 2015, the Ministry conducted all baseline assessments for the Amalu site in Navosa for the RED program and did necessary work for the Forest Carbon Assessment Program, a carbon trading program that compensates Fiji for preserving forests and reducing carbon emissions. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Lands and Mineral Resources plays a pivotal role in Fiji's national development by helping land developers, tenants, investors, and indigenous landowning units put land to productive use. The Ministry administers state-owned land, which comprises 4% of land in Fiji and generates approximately $11 million in ground rental annually. Since much of the state's land is located within major urban centres around the country, its effective management is crucial to national development. The Ministry's national budget in 2016 is $31 million. $4.6 million is allocated for geological and mineral investigation in 2016, including $1.2 million for surveys and assessments of potential mineral and groundwater sites. This work provides valuable information to potential investors and gives the people of Fiji access to clean and safe water. Groundwater assessment and development for large islands is allocated $750,000, nearly triple the 2015 allocation for this program, which will allow people facing water scarcity in rural areas have access to clean and safe drinking water generated from boreholes. We are allocating $2.7 million for the development of state land, an increase of $900,000 in order to develop all vacant and underutilized state land to its best condition and lease parcels out for productive use. Development work includes roads and accesses, water supply, sewage, power supply and drainage, after which maintenance becomes the responsibility of the relevant national and local government authorities. The Ministry of Industry, Trade and Tourism is allocated $58.9 million in 2016, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Fiji is attracting more investor interest by the day, and Fijian exports are growing. Fijian investors are confident, and foreign investors are optimistic about what Fiji can offer. Tourism continues to grow as the word spreads that Fiji is a vacation destination that stacks up to any in the world. This is the result of hard work by the Fijian people and sound government policies and plans that are executed in large part by the Ministry. Madam Speaker, tourism has driven tremendous economic and social growth, increased Fiji's prestige in the world, encouraged development and raised living standards. Every dollar we invest to attract visitors is repaid many times over. So Tourism Fiji's marketing grant has been increased from $23.5 million to $30 million. This is money well spent to encourage people in our most important target markets to visit Fiji. The increase will intensify that effort and support promotion in new markets with strong potential. The allocation for micro and small business grants has been increased from $1 million to $2.2 million. Government initiated this program in 2015 to provide assistance for startups and improve the quality of products and services for existing micro and small businesses. This program, Madam Speaker, is highly successful. The Department of National Trade Measurement and Standards is allocated a budget of $3.5 million to carry out its mission of protecting consumers from unsafe and poor quality products, adopting quality standards, maintaining the nation's system of units and standards of measurement, and generally creating favorable conditions for the exchange of goods. Government has provided $2 million for the purchase of laboratory equipment for the NTMS in 2016. This equipment will include an automatic bell prover for certifying weighing instruments, vapor meters for liquefied petroleum gas, and instruments to improve accuracy in measurements by land surveyors. Madam Speaker, government has made the prosperity and future viability of Fiji's sugarcane industry a priority. The days of talking about survival are long past. Some 200 Fijians depend on sugar, the sugarcane industry, and a healthy cane industry benefits all Fijians. 8 years ago, government intervened to put a comprehensive series of reforms into action, and these reforms have been producing a remarkable turnaround in 2016. The Ministry of Sugar is seeking to collaborate with international organizations to fund capital projects to improve harvesting and transportation for cane growers. Overall, the budget for the ministry is $23.8 million in 2016, an increase of $12 million over 2015. Government has increased funding for upgrading of cane access roads from $2.5 million to $3 million. This project will involve grading and gravelling of cane access roads, drainage work, installation of culverts, and construction of crossings. In 2016, government will continue to provide funding for fertilizer for sugarcane farmers. The allocation will be maintained at $9.7 million in 2015. Government will continue the allocation of the Sugar Development Program at $5 million. This program has two elements. First is the cane development grants, which targets farmers who have fallow land and new growers who lack start-up capital. The ministry projects that 2.06 hectares will be planted, 2,000 hectares will be planted under this program. The second is a cashback incentive scheme, which incentivizes growers with the resources to plant new cane at a total of $400 an acre. This scheme can generate an additional 3,000 acres under cultivation. Madam Speaker, government is committed to a rational and pragmatic reform of Fiji's public enterprises so that they serve the public interest efficiently and support economic growth. Government should do that because government does not do everything best which can be done by the private sector, and state-owned enterprises must always be commercially viable. Government has wholly or partially divested some assets in order to work with the private sector to improve performance and increase efficiency. The amendment to the Public Enterprise Act 2014 charges the Ministry of Public Enterprise with an oversight of 25 state-owned enterprises, and the Ministry has been allocated $16.1 million in 2016 to carry out that role. Madam Speaker, the Biosecurity Authority of Fiji is on the front lines protecting Fiji from invasive pests and ensuring that Fiji's trading partners are assured that our export crops are safe to import into their countries. It is a job of constant vigilance requiring careful management and scientific precision, and it relies on the absolute integrity of the people who manage the inspections. BAF will receive a capital grant of $5.7 million, up from $2 million last year, which is a measure of Fiji's commitment to unquestionable quarantine services at all ports of entry. In 2016, government will fund the construction of a new transit containment center in Suva and Lautoka, and termite operation and construction of wash bays and mobile treatment facilities for Notovi, Savusavu, Kandavu, Rotuma, Nambualu, Natuvu, and Tabiuni ports. The Government Printing and Stationery Department is allocated $2.7 million in 2016. Government solicited expressions of interest last February for the sale of the government printery. We like to promote high-quality printing, particularly for export, and we are in negotiation with preferred investors, and one of them is a major Fijian enterprise. Madam Speaker, the potential divestiture of the government printery is not the only reform we are pursuing in order to modernize and, more importantly, maximize the potential of these state enterprises. As highlighted earlier on, Madam Speaker, the Honourable Prime Minister signed the divestment of the shares agreement yesterday. We hope to also, as highlighted again, continue divestiture of some of the shares with some very well-known international management companies that are interested in Airports Fiji Limited. We have already received expression of interest for FEA, and we are looking at partial divestment and conversion to commercial equity with both public and private partnership. Separating FEA's regulatory and commercial functions would promote competition and lead to efficient and affordable electricity services to the general public of Fiji. FEA will perform the review of the Electricity Act in 2016. Government completed the sale of 8 vacant lots at Colombo tax-free zone and generated $5 million, Madam Speaker. To maximize return from our investment, Government will be looking to sell the remaining 2 properties at the tax-free zone. Madam Speaker, finally, Government is working with the Fijian National Provident Fund to sell 10 of its foreign-owned missions, 4 properties in New Zealand, 2 in Australia, 3 in the UK and 1 in Brussels. The sale of the foreign mission properties will increase FNPF's foreign investment portfolio for the benefit of its members, reduce government's management and maintenance obligations for offshore properties, but also keep these properties in the hands of Fijians right down to the grassroots. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Finance will be leading several of the reform initiatives as outlined in the budget presentation. It is provided with a budget of $90 million in 2016, an increase of $9.2 million primarily directed towards FERCA. FERCA's budget has also increased, Madam Speaker. A sum of $40.7 million is provided for FERCA's operating budget, and another $10 million is allocated to fund FERCA's capital expenses. This will mainly be focusing on the upgrading of ICT infrastructure to improve communication and service delivery, and the new technology that will be increased to connect cash registers to FERCA's offices. The Fiji Bureau of Statistics has been allocated $6.2 million, Madam Speaker, in 2016, an increase of $1.4 million to hire 17 additional staff to strengthen the department's analytical capacity to meet increasing demand for detailed statistics, clear statistics, accurate statistics, and the development of new economic indicators. The Strategic Planning Office allocated $6.1 million to ensure the implementation of new divisional capital projects and the hiring of 13 new staff to assist with the climate change section and the capital monitoring unit. The Aftercare Fund, which provides monthly allowances, medical assistance, educational assistance, and death benefits to ex-servicemen or their beneficiaries, will be funded at $8.8 million. This is an increase of $400,000 over 2015 in order to meet the shortfall in the budget for the current recipients, who now stand at 6,768 people. The Aftercare Fund will cater for an additional 137 applicants in 2016. The pensions budget, which is administered by the Ministry of Finance, will be maintained at $42.3 million in 2016. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Local Government and Environment has provided $35 million in 2016, an increase of $2.4 million over the 2015 level. The Ministry's 5-year plan to support Fiji's economic growth promotes sustainable development and seeks to improve services that government provides to all Fijians to 2018. The construction of the Namboro landfill moves to stage 2 and is allocated $1.7 million. This will provide future space with at least 6 months of contingency airspace remaining. The construction of a waste transfer station to improve environmental health in the Central Division is allocated more than $2 million. The division is one of the most inefficient areas in waste management, largely because the options available to properly dispose of solid waste are expensive. The National Fire Authority is provided $4 million to purchase fire trucks and ambulances, fire appliances and personal protective equipment, and to build fire stations and satellite stations, including the Nambuwalu Fire Station. An additional $900,000 is allocated to procure and install fire hydrants in strategic locations around the country. Madam Speaker, a total of $7 million is allocated to complete the Albert Park redevelopment project in Suva. Albert Park, Madam Speaker, of course, is at the heart of the capital and a point of pride for all Fijian people and a focus of civic and family activity. The redevelopment of Albert Park will enable organizations to host major events in the country with improved playing facility and, of course, to hold national functions. The Lautoka City Council received $2.8 million, Madam Speaker, to begin work on the redevelopment of Churchill Park. We need to have the same type and same caliber of facilities that we have in Suva out in the Western Division also, Madam Speaker. The Challenge Investment Fund for Municipal Town Councils is provided $4 million to help municipal councils fund upgrading and maintenance of specific capital projects on a shared basis in partnership with private business. It is a public-private partnership challenge and investment fund that provides seed capital and working capital for all 13 local and municipal councils to use these in partnership. Funding for 2016 will support the upgrading of Raki market facilities, the extension of Gavi Park, construction of the new Namaka market, given the 4-laning, the upgrading of Johnny Park, Nganilau Park, Nayawa Recreational Centre, and riverbank development and extension of Gavi Park again. The Lautoka City Council, Madam Speaker, will also receive $250,000 for preliminary work to build the first ever public swimming pool in the Lautoka City, in the Botanical Gardens. The project will also include beautification of the area, and the total cost of the project will be approximately $1.6 million. The Nosori Town Council will receive $500,000 for preliminary work to build a stadium at Valley Level ground. The proposed stadium will include 2 changing rooms, a pavilion with seating capacity of 3,500 people, public conveniences, medical room, media center, and the total project cost of $3.4 million. Government is allocating, Madam Speaker, $1.9 million to develop town centers in rural areas of 5 provinces that have been identified as growth centers. These include Nambuwalu Center in Bua, Sainganga in Maduwata, Vunindawa in Naitasiri, Kayasi in Nanoga and Korovo in Tailevu. Funds for 2016 will be directed towards the development of the Kayasi, Nambuwalu and Sainganga sites. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Infrastructure and Transport is a linchpin ministry because it plans, regulates and carries out activities that help drive economic growth, protect and raise the country's standard of living and ensure public health and safety. It is also critical to many activities carried out by other ministries in the private sector. The ministry's budget for 2016 totals $112.2 million, with $61.4 million allocated for operations and $56.7 million allocated for capital expenditure. This is an increase of $9.2 million over the 2015 level, mainly due to increase in operating costs of the Land Transport Authority and new capital expenditures. The operating grant for the Land Transport Authority is increased from $15 million to $18 million, but its capital grant is increased to $6.5 million for new projects such as electronic queue management system and other system upgrades. The overall increase will provide the additional 71 staff required for law enforcement and road safety and meet operational costs for LTA and 4 new offices around the country, Nambuwalu, Lekutu, Korovo and Navua. The Maritime Safety Authority Fiji's operating grant is also increased slightly to $2.5 million. Government Shipping Services is funded at $22 million to allow it to provide important services and development to Fiji's maritime communities with a modern, well-provisioned fleet. Major activities include the second phase of the reconstruction of the government wharf at a cost of $2.9 million and the upgrade of Government Shipping Services building, which is budgeted at $2.3 million. Government Shipping Services will also receive $5 million to purchase a new vessel. We are amending the law to allow for older but refurbished vessels that have met maritime safety standards to be imported in Fiji. This will provide more competition and more services to the maritime dwellers in Fiji. The Meteorological Services provided a new allocation of $1.3 million to replace the aging and worn-out Nandi radar antenna components. These components, Madam Speaker, are more than 20 years old, and with the unpredictable weather pattern we face, we cannot afford not to replace it. Madam Speaker, the Fiji First Government and the Bainimarama government that preceded it have made the upgrade of the nation's roads a matter of urgency. We are about halfway through a 10-year plan to essentially create a new modern land transport infrastructure. Fiji Roads Authority has allocated a total of $635.7 million in 2016, $79.8 million of which is for basic ongoing maintenance. Government is providing $75 million for renewal and replacement of roads that are beyond reasonable repair. Around 230 kilometers of sealed road network need major renewal, and more than 70 kilometers need resealing. Government has also allocated $7.6 million for the capital community program to improve the quality of roads in rural areas and enhance pedestrian safety through the construction of urban footpaths. $30.6 million upgrading and replacement of bridges has been allocated. There's still more than 100 bridges that are in danger of collapse and need to be replaced. The maintenance and renewal of jetties in Savu-Savu, Vunise and Kandavu and Natovi is provided $11.7 million in 2016. Madam Speaker, we have also, for the first time, reached an agreement between all the 4 divisional commissioners and the FRA, and they will next week be signing an agreement where they have identified roads that need to be fixed up immediately. And $50 million has been specifically allocated, Madam Speaker, to the maintenance of rural roads, apart from the other major projects in the Rural Roads Division. Madam Speaker, street lighting is critical for safety, for motorists, for pedestrians, and personal security. We prioritize street lighting through the Street Lighting Improvement Program, which is funded $1.1 million. Nearly all of that through a loan by the Asian Development Bank. Less than $1.2 million come from current funds. This is a good example of how debt can be used for investment that will actually produce growth. And $5.6 million will fund the installation of rural street lighting systems. Madam Speaker, a number of villages that have been identified from Subat all the way to Nailanga in Ba will be street lighted by May or June of next year. And then another trench of villages along Kings Road going towards Rewa past the airport will also be street lighted by the end of next year. There's a long list of villages, but I'll keep that for the committee stage discussions. The ADB and World Bank are also funding renewal and replacement of roads to the tune of $81 million. The upgrading and replacement of bridges, for which they've contributed $16.2 million, and the upgrading of rural roads at $7.7 million. As highlighted, Madam Speaker, these agreements will be signed with the Division Commissioners. One of the major challenges that we face in particular in making roads to international standards, in particular in remote islands and some of the rural areas, is access to gravel. Recently, to build some of the good roads in Kandavu, they are looking at options of taking gravel or right aggregate from Viti level, which is obviously very, very expensive. So many of these issues where we want to address long-term road construction needs to be addressed in a very fundamental manner. And of course, accessibility to gravel is very, very critical to this. The Department of Energy's allocation is increased to $34.8 million, and the rural electrification project is allocated $15 million. A number of new grid extensions will be undertaken in 2016, and others in progress will be continued. The total allocation of these grid extension projects stands at $7.5 million. FEA has provided $7.2 million to establish a depot on Tabuni to allow it to oversee the supply and distribution of electricity to households in Somosomo. 4 new grid extension projects are earmarked for 2016 and funded at $2.6 million. They are in Omaivuna sector in Natasiri, Wainivode and nearby areas in Tavua, Nabuka-Levu and Nuku village, and Lawaki village to Wairiki district school. The Tokomaioalu grid extension is entering stage 2 of construction in Ra. This project, funded at $2.2 million, connects 656 customers in 10 villages, 26 settlements, and 1 school. The Koronumbu Namau project, funded at $1.8 million, will extend the FEA grid along Koronumbu to Navala village, benefiting 153 families. The grid extension from Lawaki village to Navakurua, Suweni, Wairiki district school, and Vatudamu, Kinia settlement in Takondroe province is funded at $260,000. Electrification of rural government stations is provided $400,000 to ensure operations in the 4 rural government stations, Lakemba, Kandavu, Nambuwalu, and Rotuma. And $900,000, Madam Speaker, is allocated for phase 2 of the grid extension project that will benefit 125 households in the Burewai district and some 270 more in Nakorotumbu district. Madam Speaker, we are also happy to announce that from 2016 onwards, that government will no longer require the partial 10% deposit by various communities to have the grid extension to them. Government will now fully fund this. And our main priority, Madam Speaker, is to identify all those communities that have been, in fact, in the system for a long period of time, and they will be the first ones to get the grid extension. One of the reasons why it has been held up, because, for example, if there were 10 homes in a particular area, they all had to pay $2,000 each. Maybe out of the 10, only 5 paid. And that money has been held in trust, and that money will be returned to them, and that project will be done completely by government. Madam Speaker, we also are committed to extending adequate potable water to all Fijians and providing proper sewage and sanitation system. The operating grant for the Water Authority of Fiji is increased by more than $10 million in 2016 to $74.2 million, and the capital grant will be increased to $176.3 million. Major capital works to be implemented in 2016 include the replacement of bulk trunk lines and further funding of $31.1 million to improve water distribution. Government has provided $24.4 million to further improve water treatment quality, $14.1 million for replacement of old meters, and $8.7 million for non-revenue water. We are providing $13.1 million for wastewater treatment and $15.4 million for wastewater distribution in an effort to connect Fijians in urban areas to wastewater reticulation and eliminate the use of septic tanks. We are providing $5 million for the FRA counterpart funding for the relocation of existing water and wastewater pipes. Madam Speaker, government is maintaining funding of $7 million to improve water and sanitation standards for Fijians living in rural settlements and $3 million for improvement of catchment and water resource areas. Madam Speaker, rural communities are suffering the most from drought, and government is also providing a new allocation of $1.4 million for free water tanks for Fijians living in maritime and rural drought-stricken areas. A total of 2,000 water tanks will be distributed to these communities in 2016. Another new allocation of $4.5 million has been provided for a government subsidy program for rainwater harvesting systems targeting areas that suffer from an intermittent supply of water. The program will be expanded in 2017. In 2016, government is allocating $5 million to complement $5.7 million in funding from the Asian Development Bank for the urban water supply and wastewater management project. The project will undertake preparatory works for the new water treatment plant in Rewa River and the sewage extension in Kinoya. Madam Speaker, we are also complying with the job evaluation exercise where all the non-management staff in FEA will be given their new pay rise as per the job evaluation exercise. Madam Speaker, we are also happy to announce that just as with electricity where you had a 10% requirement, communities will no longer have to pay the 10%. Government will fully fund those projects where they need to have access to water. And we will firstly address these matters where communities have already paid deposits. They will be the first ones to be the beneficiary of this particular new initiative by government. Madam Speaker, the government is committed to spreading the benefits of technology to all Fijians. As recently seen by the Prime Minister receiving an award, we have been recognized for bridging the digital divide between the rural and the urban, the rich and the poor. The benefits of technological advances shall be equally accessible to all Fijians and not just the elite. In pursuit of this goal, the Ministry of Communications is responsible for providing coordination, support, and leadership on all matters of policy, law, regulation, and strategy for information, communication, and technology. A total budget of $26.4 million is provided to fund its operations. As you said, the ITU recently gave the Honourable Prime Minister recognition because Fiji is recognized for harnessing the potential of information and communication technology. We are taking another big step towards digital television. We've allotted $2 million for the purchase of digital set-up boxes that will allow Fijians to view the enhanced images and gain the advantage of digital television. Madam Speaker, we also have a new allocation. We also allocated $350,000 to support local movie producers who want to make movie productions. We have seen advertised recently where the first ever trilingual soap opera has been produced in Fiji through FNU, and which will be shown in FBC, Madam Speaker, through the PSB service. And Madam Speaker, this $250,000 will also encourage other producers. It will also be used to cultivate Fijian talent in writing and publishing their novels. And this will be done through the Ministry of Communications through a team. Madam Speaker, the Office of the President has been allocated $3.4 million in 2016, which includes $1.4 million for capital projects. This includes the recreation facility and the Stage 2 of the Coronation Ground Drainage Project. The Office of the Prime Minister, Madam Speaker, is allocated $15.5 million, which represents a slight increase of $1.2 million compared to 2015. The funding for the Fiji Mahogany Trust is also maintained at its 2015 level at $250,000. The allocation of the Prime Minister's Small Grant Scheme is also maintained at $7 million. The support to fund for the education of needy children or FENCE will continue in 2016 at $200,000. Madam Speaker, the Office of the Attorney General is allocated $18.3 million. A budget of $5 million is allocated to enable the Legal Aid Commission, as we mentioned, to provide services in those areas that I had highlighted, and the funding is channeled through the Attorney General's office. Madam Speaker, to cover the associated legal costs of providing refuge for Pacific Islanders displaced by the effects of climate change, and to look at the legal implications, Madam Speaker, we have allocated $50,000. Madam Speaker, $1.9 billion has been allocated for government's domestic air service subsidy for Fiji's domestic air service providers, Fiji Link and Northern Air, to operate flights to areas within Fiji that would not otherwise be commercially viable. Such as Koro, Ngau, Onoilau, Dithia, Lakemba, Rotuma, and Panumbala. As soon as I mention Panumbala, my voice went. Reliable air services to Fiji's outer islands provides critical access to services and markets for the local populations. It is also essential for unlocking the economic potential of these areas. Madam Speaker, the total budget for Parliament in 2016 is $9.9 million, which is a $961,700 increase over 2015. The increase is due to a number of capital projects and an increase in sitting allowances for those members in committees. This will facilitate delivery of documents and reduce paper costs with the IT upgrade that will also take place. $60,000, Madam Speaker, has also been allocated to provide for the construction of a ramp for people with disabilities to enter this Parliament. Madam Speaker, the Office of the Auditor General has been allocated some $4.2 million to carry out its important function in transparent running of government. This increase of $143,600 over the 2015 level is to account for the increase in salary levels for audit officers. We, as discussed with the Auditor General, many of the officers in fact leave after a period of time because there are better conditions elsewhere. So we have increased their salaries and allowed for that increase for them to retain their staff. Madam Speaker, the Fijian Elections Office, needless to say about its functions, has been allocated $6.4 million. The Judiciary, Madam Speaker, has a total budget of $44 million, which has been provided to the Judiciary an increase of $3.6 million when compared to the 2015 level. Part of this increase is due to the fact that the Judiciary has assumed responsibility for the Public Services Disciplinary Tribunal and Agricultural Tribunal. It also reflects increase in judges' salaries. $2.5 million is allocated for upgrading and renovating the courts around the country, and $7 million is allocated for extending the Lautoka High Court. The DPP, Madam Speaker, has $6.1 million in the 2016 budget, an increase of $342,600. Madam Speaker, the Constitution guarantees every Fijian's right to economic participation, a just minimum wage, speedy resolution of employment grievances and disputes, and fair employment practices and conditions. Government is committed to doing everything in its power to uphold these rights for workers across the country, whilst at the same time helping employers grow and succeed. The Ministry of Employment, Productivity and Industrial Relations is provided $17.3 million in 2016, slightly more than 2015, to account for an increase in workers' compensation allowance. The National Health and Occupational Safety Service is allocated $7.6 million. Madam Speaker, independent commissions. Fiji's independent commissions, Madam Speaker, directly serve the people in specialized areas where objective and non-political judgment is required. These commissions gain credibility, applying the law independently, and are a valuable tool for democratic governance. They share the larger purpose of defending the dignity of individuals in society, keeping institutions and the people who serve the public accountable, and serving as a constant reminder that government serves the people. A sum of $15.88 million is provided to fund the operations of the 5 independent commissions: the Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Commission, the Accountability and Transparency Commission, the Freedom of Information Commission, the Public Service Commission, and the Fiji Independent Commission Against Corruption. Madam Speaker, the 2016 revenue policies will accomplish the following objectives. It will reduce the tax burden on ordinary Fijians, promote investment and support economic growth, achieve greater progressivity in the overall taxation system, adopt a low-rate and broad-based taxation regime, respond aggressively to non-tax compliance, and simplify taxation administration. Madam Speaker, as highlighted earlier on, a number of incentives have taken place in respect of duty reductions and duty increase in various areas, many of them which I have highlighted. But Madam Speaker, I'd also like to highlight some of the ones that have not been mentioned. The duty on minivans, Madam Speaker, will be reduced from 32% to 5% to promote transportation safety, particularly for ordinary Fijians. These are the minibuses. Many of them are used by ordinary Fijians. We want them to use new quality, and we reduce the duty from 32% to 5%. As I mentioned about the tyres, Madam Speaker, that will be all changed now. Further to the removal of duty suspension scheme, all raw materials and packaging materials will be duty-free. Duty rates will increase to 32% for solar batteries, as we've got local producers of it, unless they come with a vehicle. Madam Speaker, again, all duties will be removed on sewing machines, spare parts, consumables such as buttons, fasteners, needles, and zippers. The reduced duty of 5% will apply to deodorants, underpants, briefs, baby garments, kayaks, auto, rickshaws, and air compressors. Duty on what we call tourism items will be reduced from 32% to 15%. And these, of course, include a number of items, as has been highlighted, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we also wish to highlight that for the first time in Fiji, we'll be bringing downtown duty-free shopping, which basically means, Madam Speaker, any accredited shop that has been certified by FIRCA, if a tourist or foreigner walks into the shop, they will be able to purchase those goods duty-free, as it will be marked, and then pick up those goods at the airport or at the port when they leave. This will, of course, enhance greater shopping experience in Fiji, give more opportunities for our businesses, and also create jobs, because you need more salespeople, and you'll get also VAT from those items. Madam Speaker, to assist the poultry production in Fiji, we'll reduce duty on all day-old chicks and fertilized eggs to 0% duty. The fiscal duty for electrical cables that cannot be manufactured locally has been reduced from 32% to 5%, and the import excise has been reduced from 10% to 5%. We're also going to reduce duty or completely zero-rate duty on fire safety awareness equipment. Madam Speaker, we get a lot of Section 10 requests for duty-free access of furniture that religious organizations, churches, and various other organizations, including schools, who get donated furniture. Madam Speaker, in order to allow for that, we are going to give a one-year exemption, Madam Speaker, where these items can be brought in at a fiscal rate of 5% duty and 5% excise for 1 year from today. So please, if you are aware of any organization that want to import this type of furniture, please do so, and you'll be given these concession rates. To strengthen customs administration, the control of customs will now be able to dispose of goods that have been placed under lien for recovery of duty and penalty. Madam Speaker, for ease of customs business, importers will have the option to repay, prepay or defer customs payment or pay installments for duty shortfalls that have been determined by the investigations and audit teams. Madam Speaker, to further promote further development, tax-free zone is now extended from the Nosuri Airport side of the railroad bridge, including the township boundary, beyond that, to the bar side of Matawalu River. So all that area will now become the entire tax-free zone. Originally, as you know, it was marked from Korovo to Tavua. It will now extend all the way, including parts of Rewa, Tailevu, going across all the way to the border at Matawalu River in just after Tedamu. All projects, Madam Speaker, must commence within 18 months from the date of the provisional approval, and therefore they'll be able to receive this. The credit card levy, Madam Speaker, in order to control our credit, will increase from 2% to 3%. Madam Speaker, to ease the burden of tax and simplification of administration, contractors' provisional tax will reduce from 15% to 5%, and certificates of exemption will no longer be issued. Madam Speaker, a tax deduction of 150% will be allowed to foreign companies for capital expenditure incurred for the setup of headquarters relocated to Fiji. A 50% tax deduction, Madam Speaker, will be offered to businesses that supply Fijian-made uniforms to their staff, provided cost is not recovered from the staff. To ease compliance for employers, Madam Speaker, the employer monthly schedule can be lodged half-yearly if all employees are below the 16,000 income tax exemption threshold. The FERCA Gold Card taxpayer membership, Madam Speaker, will be extended to include taxpayers who have improved tax compliance ratings. Taxation of entities under the Diplomatic Privileges and Immunities Act will be governed by agreements signed by the government. Madam Speaker, FERCA will reinstate bad debts for collection of tax based on taxpayers' ability to pay. An audit penalty will apply to all erroneous claims or losses. Madam Speaker, there will be an extension of the TIN requirements or tax identification number for various government statutory bodies. The 50% export income tax deduction will be continued tax in 2016, whereby 50% of income from exports will not be subject to tax. Madam Speaker, there is a number of clarifications that have also been put in place regarding the STT, and that has been now smoothed and streamlined. Madam Speaker, a number of exemptions also has been applied to the Stamp Duty Act, as you know, for the microfinance businesses. But also, Madam Speaker, we have identified areas where people are bypassing the paying of stamp duty, in particular in intercompany loans where they're simply signing a deed. So these will also now be caught under the new provisions of the Stamp Duties Act. Madam Speaker, we are also relegating some powers of the waiver to the power to waive stamp duty to the CEO of FERCA up to the sum of $10,000 to fast-track these applications. Madam Speaker, as been highlighted, we have also removed a number of those VAT anomalies that have been put in place. Madam Speaker, finally, I wish to thank you for this opportunity to present the 2016 budget to Parliament. We have actually seen a brief outline of what is contained in the budget. The budget is a lot more detailed, but in the interest of time, I've cut this a little bit short. As you can see, Madam Speaker, that the Fiji First government is working hard not just to manage government's revenue, but put in place a fiscal and regulatory regime that rewards hard work, honesty and initiative. We are trying to institutionalize through government policies and programs the inherent kindness and charity of the Fijian people towards their least fortunate neighbors. We are committed to giving Fijians the kind of education, healthcare and infrastructure that they deserve for a full life. And we are certain that if we stay the course, Fiji will grow more prosperous, more healthy and more united each day, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I now have much pleasure to commend the 2016 budget to Parliament do so with the concurrence of Cabinet. May God bless Fiji. Thank you.